Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of the Ara Ara Channel. I'm Amy, your host for today, and with me today is my co-host Vivs and our very special guest for today, Kevin. So Kevin, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a Dubai resident and slash Dubai kid who grew up here in the 90s and huge nerd into many things like anime, Lego, gaming, mostly gaming. But I do have my share of love for anime, and when I'm not doing any of that stuff, I'm actually a journalist and a content producer as well.
That sounds interesting.
I didn't even know that you were a journalist. I always
I am.
So the way that I know Kevin is, well, we met at a movie premiere for Alien Romulus. And then later I found out, he was one of the organizers for Hobbynation.
I do a lot of things. I also am one of the few, one of the core admins of Hobbynation. We are a community pop culture group, and we like to do things for the community in the UAE, mainly when it's coming to putting on events, doing cosplay competitions, and of course like fun hangout events, of which I'm sure both of you have come for
Yeah.
many of the
Yes.
events as well. And
Yeah.
when we have big enough community and big enough interest, we also do quiz nights as well, which are a little fun exercise of patience and like testing everyone's knowledge. And it was quite fun to do the last one because again it was an anime specific quiz as well, and it was quite fun to like drop little One Piece facts that stumped everybody. Like,
Yeah.
oh, wait, when was this obscure fact in this random page in the manga that like no one has skipped through because it was in the intro pages and stuff like that. So yeah, like again, do a bunch of things, but at the end of the day, most of it comes from the love of the pop culture stuff that I love to do, and I'm kind of blessed and lucky to be working in an industry that is close to that. So yeah,
That's every nerd's dream, to be working in this field, to do what we love.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah.
And I think for me, I met Kevin randomly. Not randomly, I just followed, I guess, on Instagram.
You know,
And
that's a story. That's a
It's
story of
quiz
everybody,
nights.
by the way.
They met you randomly.
Everyone goes like, "How do you know Kevin?" I haven't met the guy randomly, and like at this point, I'm
It just
kind of used to it
happened.
now. It
yeah,
just
like I
happens.
think
You know,
I saw one story that I liked, and then I followed, and then I don't know, and then suddenly it's there. And then there was one time that Amy was telling me about Kevin, and I was like, "Huh? He knows me? How?" It's like, and then Amy was like, "Yeah, you were chatting with him. What do you mean? I don't know Kevin." And then when I saw the name Nox Voyager, and I was like, "Oh, that's him." Because like,
you see, that's the thing.
because that is the
That's the
thing.
thing,
Like
though, right? Everybody knows Nox Voyager, but when you say Kevin, who's Kevin? Oh, Nox Voyager,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
and then people suddenly like make the connection and
Yes.
stuff. Yeah, like it's a fun thing, like little tidbit fact. Was like I've seen the podcast before. I watched it, and like that's how I got into it and followed it because again, no one's and kudos to you both because no one's actually talking about anime here locally, at least in the English language, because of course we have plenty of
Arabic,
Arab
yeah.
YouTubers
Yeah.
and who are doing this. But for the English channel, obviously, like I'm pretty sure, like when I hear people talk in conversation with each other, and they're all about like, we should make a podcast about this. This is some very interesting stuff that people are talking. So it's very cool. Like, and that's how I know of to do a few in that
Oh.
Thank you
in
so
that sense.
much.
So
That
yeah.
makes me really happy. So yeah, okay. Now let's move on to the main topic of this episode. Is gonna be Isekai and Kevin's love for Isekai, which we do not share the same love. I'm sorry to say. I think there was a point in my life that I did like isekai animes, but like it went downhill from there. So I just wanted to ask you, Kevin, was there a specific anime that made you fall in love with the genre?
Believe it or not, I think this is the title I'm about to say does not fall under traditional isekai anime as we know it, but Digimon Adventures 1999
It does.
is technically an isekai.
It does.
It
Yeah.
is technically an isekai. The first season is technically an
Oh
isekai.
yeah. Now
If
that
you
you
think
mention
about
it,
it, if you
yeah.
think about it, Digimon was the first thing that aired. And again, at the end of the day, we had like one channel growing up here, right? In Dubai. It was Channel 33. We don't know it as Dubai One. Channel 33 was the only channel, and then they started putting Digimon Adventures. And I'm like, everyone knew about Pokemon, right? At the time. But I'm like, what is this knockoff random thing with the watches and stuff like that? And I was like looking at it, and I'm like, oh gosh, this looks so terrible. I'd love it. I fell in love with Digimon way more than Pokemon at one point
Yeah.
because the story is actually so much more better. It's so much more better than this one trainer who doesn't grow up.
Yeah.
And suddenly, like, he does this huge payoff in every episode, and then he loses at the big tournament. Come on, like Digimon Adventures was like a very mature take on the whole pocket monster genre, and I think if you think about it, that's literally how I actually broke into anime as well, because I saw that, and Transformers One is also, again, it's a very controversial topic about if it's considered anime or not, but Transformers, the first G1 series, which came out in like the 70s and 80s, and I also like a lot of Gundam as well. So like
Mhm.
that, literally a combination of all of this like sci-fi universes brought me to that. But then the whole fantasy element to that, it really is. I started diving deep into it, and this is like I was like 10, 11 years old. Me showing my age here. um, Inuyasha was the next one. Like in my second, like right there, like Inuyasha, again, not an isekai really, if in the most traditional sense, but
It is an
it
isekai. Oh my god, I will die on
uh,
this hill.
I mean, yeah, but it's not like centered. The protagonist is like obviously, the MC is from that world. So that's why like, a lot of schools are taught, like, is that an isekai really? Is it? It is technically. I mean, but
It's
then
like the whole
that, and
Sword Art
then
Online debate as well.
oh
If it's
yeah,
an
like look, Sword
isekai
Art
as well.
Online, like Sword Art Online is it has a very deep place in my heart as trash isekai. It's in like little folder, like great, we have a new SAO
Oh my
again.
god.
I think I'm the most controversial guest on your channel today. Um, don't let me talk about my thoughts about Attack on Titan, but hey, this is not that
That's
episode.
gonna be on
No,
another
so
episode, Kevin.
no,
Please.
I
no,
actually wanted
so
that to be the episode, but she was like, let's start with isekai first.
yeah, let's not anger people very early with this controversial guy's take on anime. No, but in all seriousness, the one that I invested my most time was Digimon Adventures and Yu Yu Hakusho, and Yu Yu Hakusho was like the golden era for me. For like, I mean, can you call it an isekai? Maybe, maybe not. But the guy keeps going back and forth.
The spirit world,
So
demon
yeah,
world.
but like I think these were like my foundations for isekai, and then I kind of fell off the wagon a bit because again, like other pop culture came up as well, and then I suddenly started like getting back into it. Like after I saw like some of the more mature takes Pokemon was taking, for example, in the series, which was really really good. It was the writing suddenly improved, and I suddenly like decided to like get back into anime, and this is like mid 2015, and I started watching Full Metal. I started watching like Shippuden and all of these other things, but I really couldn't get into the shonen as much as like everybody else did. So I'm sure you have something to say about this, but yeah,
No, for
this
me,
is
I
generally
agree
it.
with you.
No,
Yeah,
I share the
I'm the shonen girl here.
yeah. Listen, the only shonen I'm currently watching right now, and I'm stuck to it because I want to see how this ends and how this plays out, is One Piece.
Of
Like
course.
the creator mentioned, obviously, Oda Sensei mentioned that it's just not like one of those. The journey along the way is
Yeah,
the
the
One Piece
yeah.
thing.
memories.
It's an actual thing. So I mean, okay, fine, you confirm that and you remove that part. So like now we are all invested in watching. The reason why I generally liked the isekai genre in general is like, look, why do we watch anything? Why do we watch the stuff that we watch? We use it to escape our own real lives, and it's something that's to entertain us. And it's like we obviously have, as we get older, as we become with more responsibilities, and we have to like do the adult things like pay rent and stuff like that. We obviously have such a small amount of time to enjoy the things that we do. So isekai kind of for me was like the comfort junk food of anime,
Okay.
and like that is generally why I like watching it, because like who doesn't want to watch a person who had it tough and then gets reborn into another world, becomes OP as hell, and then suddenly like dominates that world. And it's a nice, the power fantasy is like, I think it appeals to me, and it's just to see like this character who's obviously very grounded in his own world, and suddenly like he's this, he or she is this massive overpowered character, and it's learning to like adjust in this new world. And I think for me that in itself is very reminiscent of our own real life experiences. Like I'm sure like people who, again, who are not from this place, who are not from here, will be like, oh yeah, I have to adjust in this new world. And it's kind of like a very, I want to say, parallel thing, hence parallel world, but like you live in a different world generally as people who are not from this country and stuff like that. And I think that in itself is like a nice take on it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I was remembering it now, the animes that I've watched that made me watch anime is actually isekai. So my very first isekai that I can remember is Magic Knight Grey Earth. That's
I
a
remember seeing that. I
yeah.
haven't. Because at the time, and I think this was also like because anime never used to come here a lot,
Mhm.
and I do remember it like coming on Toonami. Toonami,
Yes.
oh my god, Toonami. And Toonami had Dash, and it had Card Captor Sakura, and
Mhm.
it had Dot Hack.
Yes.
And Dot Hack was like, I'm like, what am I watching? And I'm like, I don't want to watch it, but I kept
Like you're
going
like
because
this. Mm.
I'm like, I don't understand it, but I'm going to keep watching to see how this pays off, and the payoff is good.
Yeah.
Like, I think Dot Hack itself in an isekai is an isekai, like a very classic example of as a very very solid isekai. But the ending for me blew my mind,
Mhm.
and I think that was one of the first things. Like, okay, yeah, this makes sense now. Now that you know about the actual character, because you don't get to know about that till
At the
the
very
very
end,
like
yeah.
last few, till the
Mm.
very end, and all of that makes sense. I'm like, oh, that's why this character did all those weird things that they wouldn't normally do, and then it made a lot more sense for me. And when I watched it again the second time around, I'm like, okay, now I see it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole point of Isekai. Either it's a smack dub hit,
Mhm.
or
It's
it's
trash.
just like it's trash.
Yeah, it's like
I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you, Swada.
I knew it. So yeah, just those titles,
Yeah,
I definitely agree with Magic Knight. I mean, obviously that's my experience. Magic Knight Rayearth, Inuyasha, Vision of
yeah.
Escaflowne, even Fushigi Yugi, if you guys know about it. What about you, Amy? Is there any titles that you think is an isekai or that you've watched? Because I don't think you remember anything.
No, so we were I was literally at Viv's place before this, and we were just talking about me in general and how I just don't remember anything.
Yeah.
So uh mm, we watched the show together. I
Which
think
one?
that's an isekai.
Which
It
one?
was
The time skipping one?
last no, where he fights monsters in another world. What?
Solo leveling?
Literally every
That can be
isekai.
one of 100
Solo leveling.
isekais.
Solo leveling.
Kevin's point. Yeah, that's true. It could be any
He
title.
goes to another. No, solo leveling.
Yeah.
Instead of solo leveling,
Yeah.
that was the title. That's an isekai, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So,
What do you think? Okay,
uh,
so now that we're on this topic, what would qualify as an isekai?
okay. I mean, look, the premise is someone gets put in a world that is very strangely unfamiliar to their own. It can either be that they get reincarnated into another world thanks to knife kun, truck kun, uh, food poisoning kun of recently,
Raccoon
and
is most famous
Yeah.
kun.
the kun, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Yeah, like it's either what it's Japanese, so it's either stabbing, a truck runs over you, or you get food poisoning, or you get overworked. And, uh,
I laughed too
which is
hard.
why
Sorry.
I think everyone relates to
Yeah.
that, right? And yeah, he died from overworking. Yeah, I can see that possibly happening. Yeah. um, the crux is like they obviously get transported into their own world either by choice or by like without
Summoning.
without being willingly put in this other space, another world. And I think they essentially have to figure out what makes them unique in that world, or they either blessed with like godlike powers to like basically do this. And more often than not, it's usually like someone from the modern world's put into like this fantasy setting.
Yeah.
That is the crux of isekais as we know it. But then I think a lot of people have started watching stuff like ReZero, for example. I think ReZero is like the most successful one
Really?
in terms of like
I think so.
yeah, because it's got like 3 seasons now, right?
Yeah.
And followed by that time I was reincarnated
The
as a
slime,
slime.
yeah.
And yeah, but then that's the thing though, right? Like that's the difference between trash anime and good anime, because in the trash anime, somehow this everything goes wrong for MC, and in one episode it's all done. Like everything's okay, we're all fine, we're all friends here. Like it's just the script writing though, like it makes no sense to me, right? But I think that time I reincarnated as a slime was like one of those genres where you can see clearly that this guy, his age is showing in the decisions that he does, right? I think one of those things is that I think from a Japanese perspective as well, we see that their ideals are often showing
Yeah.
in their characters in the setting, and I think that's what makes them so popular. Like, oh hey, like this is a foreign world, it's not very and more often than not, it's obviously a very European setting, like medievals and
Like
monsters and stuff like
game, fantasy world, something.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like, and you, Amy, you mentioned solo leveling as well, and like solo leveling is it's a
Yeah.
manhwa. And again, same power fantasy trope and stuff like that. But in the case of Solo Leveling, like I think
They're still in their
there is
real
some
life.
real, yeah, and you're going back and forth. Obviously, like Korean culture is amazing, and like we get to see that back and forth, especially like in the way they are adjusting to this new world where dungeons open up, portals open up to monsters and stuff like that. And they incorporated it in their story. Like, yeah, they're like these artifacts power up the city, and that's the alternative to nuclear energy. See, and I like stuff like that because you suddenly you're not losing the connection with your old story. And
They're still
other
anchored.
than other
Yeah.
yeah, like unlike other isekais who flash back to like, oh, let's go back to that timeline and do a filler episode about this guy's other life that you should not care about because he's no longer part of it. Looking at you, remonster. uh, and and that's I think why they're so popular now. And in fact, like what this season alone, like 2025, I am watching like, I'm so ashamed to say this, eight of them, eight isekais of which, like, new animes of which like five are isekais. So
Wow. What are those 5?
okay, the first one is this is a good one actually. I don't know the actual Japanese name for this one, but it's basically the premise is an otaku family. Like again, I think the actual name, and I have to pull this up actually because it's a very solid recommendation.
Okay.
Hold on a
Yeah, while
second.
you're searching for it,
Yeah,
just to add from what you said earlier about the
yeah,
subgenres of isekai. So there's actually 3 of
yeah.
it. It's called evocation, which is the summoning type. An example of it
Hmm.
is like, for example, Fushigi Yugi, where she was summoned by the world because she's the maiden, whatever. Transference type is the called Teni, which means the protagonist is transferred to a different world by varying methods and reasons. This could be your
Yeah.
Truckun, whatever. And reincarnation type, which we all know about, which is the Tensei, where the protagonist passes away either by an accident or a different reason. Or actually, I got confused with the transference and reincarnation type. It could be Truckun as well, but yeah. I remember one transference type of isekai. Kyokaramao, the main
Okay.
character, the first time he what do you call this got transported to the other world was when he was being bullied. His face was being shoved into a toilet bowl, and that got him transported into that magical world that he's actually the king. You know,
Ah,
Kevin, why are you like
that
that? This is your job.
something about going to a toilet bowl only to find out you're a king, really speaks to me in some
And he's
way.
being bullied. That's how it
Yeah.
happened. So
Okay,
okay,
so I'll give you. I have my list of animes I'm watching. I just pulled it up
okay,
because I
Okay.
have this. Okay, the first one, which is a good one to watch, actually, is called From Bureaucrat to Villainous. Dad's been reincarnated.
okay.
So the premise of this is, I know the title is incredibly long, but um,
As all isekais.
basically, yeah. So this guy is like a 50-year-old man who saved a kid again, Truckun, got him. But here's the thing, though. Like, obviously, his family, like, they're massive otakus, even though like they've worked their normal lives. This actually speaks to Japanese culture, where like people who are still in their 50s and 60s really love anime culture, and they're all weebs in their own right. And he encourages his family to be like that as well. Like, he married his wife is a uber weeb, and then his daughter's a big video game nerd. But the premise here is when he gets quote unquote killed, because we see that he's still alive in the other world, he's in a coma.
Mm.
And but when he reincarnates, he's in his daughter's video game where he's reincarnated as the villainess. And it is such an interesting premise because in as per the game, and when she's playing the game, because obviously they're all like sad and they're trying to figure out, she notices that the villain character in this is suddenly behaving very good, very cultured, and it's actually the father. The father has been reincarnated
The
as the
villain.
villainess, and the daughter has kind of made two and two together that, oh, if I do this, maybe he'll come back or something like that. And in throughout the anime, and it's a very, even though it sounds very serious and stuff like that because it's a game in a fantasy setting where she's this villain character supposed to beat down the protagonist, because he's like a very encouraging Japanese man, he suddenly becomes he becomes the main character in the game that he's the villainous in, and then
Ah.
everyone in the game starts to finally like fall in love with him.
Mm.
Well, him
As
and
well.
her as the
Uh,
villain character. It's such a it's well, first of all, it's done, it's so beautifully done. It's so beautifully animated.
mm.
And then the second thing being that it's like stupid like high school comedy where you have this 50-year-old man in the body of an 18-year-old girl trying to like lecture everybody about doing the right thing, and then suddenly he goes like, oh shoot, this is not my character.
Yeah.
I need to be more assertive. And when he does being more assertive, he starts getting more. It backfires in such a hilarious way. Like, this is the one isekai I would recommend everyone to watch, like straight up, because even the manga is ongoing, and it's like, I think, one of the most wholesome things to watch.
Mm.
The second one this season, and this one is a very interesting one because there's no manga behind this.
Oh,
It's a brand new
okay.
story. It's
So they
a
just made an
completely
anime.
they just made an anime for this. It's called
Okay.
Zenshu. Zenshu, beautiful, one of the most beautiful animations I've seen in a series, where a film director, Amy, you might relate to this one, where a film director has been tasked to do one of a kind animation, and then she has had a hard time of falling in love because this character shows a lot of signs of being like, like borderline ADHD or autistic, and she's like all into her work. She's a talented film director, and then suddenly she struggles when it comes to about making a protagonist who you can fall in love with. Like, she's supposed to make one of those typical heroes in it, and she bases her entire inspiration around another director who passed away in the real world. A movie, like it's an animated movie, and if I say anything more, it's a spoiler. So I'm just
Be
very
careful about it.
I'm being very careful about spoilers here. So she eats spoiled food and then collapses and then again transported. She is transported to the world in that film. Like, that is the word. And
So
that film is a tragedy. So here's the thing, that film's a tragedy. She loves all the characters in that film, and suddenly she's surrounded by them. And everyone hates her because, like, she acts all high and mighty like she does in the real world, saying, "Oh, I know how this is going to pan out." But then her power is actually her slider for her binder for animation paper, so that when they're in a very tough situation, because she knows how the movie is going to end and it's a tragic ending, so she's trying her best to like avoid that situation. So literally how they save the day is she starts drawing up characters to beat the evil elements in the series. And technically it's her animation, like it's her actual drawing, and we get to see how she starts to shape the world into something else. And it's like I said, like it's like a bit of a long burn watch. I would recommend people to watch the entire thing because each episode you learn something new about the character and the world as well. Because not only is, like, again, you have no manga to fall back on. It's a story you only, like, it's traditional Japanese TV. Like, you don't know what's going to happen until the next week. And Zenshu for me is like one of those beautiful isekai type genres that really like redefined it. So that is definitely like the second one I would recommend. And in terms of the other stuff, um, which you can consider as
garbage.
well, yeah, there was like a slime ripoff one, and
Okay.
it's just going to take a second because it's a long title. I'm a noble on the brink of ruin, so I might as well try mastering magic. That is the English version of this anime. It is shot for shot an exact replication of that time of the Reincarnated as a slime. Only difference is, this protagonist has no memory of. He knows he was not belonging to this world, but he has no memory of his past world, and all he knows is that, oh yeah, I should try mastering magic. And then in the second episode itself, it becomes OPSL, like, straight up. And I'm like,
There
wait,
was no transition. You just like, I'm
this
OP
is just
now.
this is just slime. This is just slime from Wish.com, and I'm like,
Timu version.
Timo slime, but there's obviously like this, there are slimes in this as well. Another one that has a lot of mixed opinions, but a lot of Japanese people like it. Headhunted to Another World, from Salaryman to Big Four. Um, the premise is, overworked Japanese man suddenly gets transported as himself. He's still
A salary
himself.
man.
A salary man, and then he goes, and then the demon king that summons him says like, I need someone with management experience to manage my army.
Oh my god.
But it's like what you said, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's a very different, like, for me, it was like such a good perspective that you put into it, where it's like,
Yeah.
you get to see the culture of people through isekai as well, like how they view the world and how they translate that into isekai. So for them, they have a lot of overworked people in Japan, and also, their dream is to just like not be overworked. Just
Yeah,
be
but
themselves, but
the
not
story in this one, so the story in this one, this is very interesting because like it actually talks about management tactics,
Oh.
and it genuinely is like, man, if you're running a business conference, like this is like an anime you can show like as entertainment, because this guy actually applies actual management
Techniques,
tactics to
okay.
deal with monsters and armies and kingdoms and that sort of thing. and it talks about sales tactics as well. So there's actually a little genius
So he
writing
has
in there.
KPIs as well. He has to.
I'm not even joking. There are KPIs in this. Like, we need to sell this much
The devil's like,
for this much
yo.
gold. No,
He's
but it's
coming.
definitely it gets a bit weird like midway, obviously, because it has the traditional elements of other isekais where there was obviously this demon monstrous looking character who's very like good looking, and
Mm.
because it's a Japanese cartoon, there's a lot of etchy elements in there as well. But this character who hates this management person suddenly starts falling in love with them and is trying their best to like get their attention. But this guy's a workaholic, so he doesn't even see the first thing that comes to him, right? So when they go out for like for basically they go out like because he wants to see things for how the world is run. They think they're going out on she thinks she's going out on a date and dresses up in a very nice way. He comes up in a full suit and he goes like, "Oh, it's market research." That is an entire 5 minutes of the woman just like sitting crestfallen. Oh no, I went to like make him feel good about himself,
Yeah.
and now he's suddenly just doing work, And that's what I'm trying to say. Like, it's like a really cool like, even though he's put in another world, he's still
Himself,
himself.
yes. His personality
Mm.
is still
Yeah,
there. Mhm.
yeah. And I'm going to very quickly tell you the other
Okay.
cash ones. This one's like a bit of a weird one. The daily life of a middle-aged online shopper in another world.
After this,
This
I have
one
So he's
is
another
also
question.
this person is online shopping in a different world.
no, close, but no. He gets transported to another world. He's a 40-year-old man.
Mhm.
His OP power is that he has Amazon. He can access the
Amazon.
internet in this world and acquire things from
But like, is
Amazon.
it Prime? Like he gets it immediately, or does he have to
Yeah,
get
yeah, yeah.
like?
It's Prime. It's basically Prime. It's the Japanese version of Amazon where he starts selling stuff on like from the world, like minerals. It's like a lot of Japanese yen,
Mm, yeah.
and then he's like, "Ah, cool." And and then you can see in the subtitles, cost of a bicycle in another world, this much after sales tax. Like,
Okay.
so it's a stupid premise, but again, like it's a comfort watch for me, and it also shows how and this is also like more to do with money and like the whole craze of online shopping, because he buys these knockoff Temu brooches, and in another world they look at it, oh my god, the nobility start buying it.
Yeah.
And it's just such a jarring watch. So I think like these are like the things that I've been watching. But there was another one as well, like again possibly the greatest alchemist of all time, where again usual person gets transported to another world, but he dies straight up,
Okay.
and then he gets blessed by all the powers with his god. And the first thing he does when he comes to this new world is he creates a toilet,
Their obsession with toilet.
like a traditional. They create like he goes like, "Oh my god, there's no toilets here." And turns out the premise is the church of that world gets angry because they have people to clean up sewage
Mhm.
by blessing it, but he just creates a toilet and it automates the
Yeah.
process. And he creates enemies.
Oh.
He creates enemies in the world
Because of the toilet.
by because of toilets, because they don't need the church anymore.
I just
And
want to understand how this
yeah,
culturally fits with Japan, because like earlier we were like, oh, they're overworked, so it makes sense.
Oh, but
What is
I
with the
mean, if you
girl,
think
toilets?
about it,
their love
if
with
you think about it,
toilets. Oh my god.
That's true.
yeah,
Oh my god.
Japanese have their love for toilets. I mean, like to be fair, they make the world's best
Yes.
toilets.
Yeah.
Not like I've used them.
Yes.
I've seen like don't ask me where I've seen a Japanese toilet here. I'm not going to tell you, but like, there are like some like the more Japanese places where you actually install Japanese
Mm.
toilets, and like they're like, oh my god, like they're an experience.
Yeah. So when I went to
Yeah,
Japan, that's the first thing I experienced, obviously, because
yeah,
and
yeah.
then like the feeling is insane. Like I'm not joking. I know it sounds like, oh my god, she's overreacting. No, I'm not overreacting. It's really just a pleasant cleaning
The
experience.
experience.
So yeah, I love toilets in Japan. They're so clean. But anyway, before we move on, I
Yeah,
have a question, because all of these
yeah.
titles that you've mentioned are seems to like mention the premise already based on the title alone. I just wanted to ask a very dumb question. Why are
Mm.
isekai titles so long? Like, is there an
Because
explanation? Where did it start? Why did it happen?
actually, I mean, Amy sent me this question, and I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, actually, yeah, why is it so long? And then I obviously like going through Japanese forums and translating them, because there were people from like from the English side of things who asked the Japanese audience, why are they so long? Turns out there's an actual explanation for this, because they're all based on light novels, right? Most
Okay.
of them.
Mm.
Like people who pick up books don't have the time to browse through these stories until like they buy the purchase. So the title tells you everything that you need to know about the story, and you know what the story is about by reading it, and like just you get the general gist of the idea,
I mean,
and that's exactly why. Yeah,
it is quite smart if you think about it.
it is. But when you translate it into English, it gets weird, right? Because see,
Mhm.
like the two animes that which are not isekai technically, but are power fantasy animes, which are out this season, and they have the most stupidest titles like ever given the worthless appraiser class. I'm actually the strongest.
Like,
What?
yeah, it's the English translation, I guess, that ruins
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Mhm.
and then there's another one, and this is like a long one, like bogus skill fruit master. About that time, I became able to eat unlimited numbers of skill fruits that kill you.
I don't know, man. Who pays
So,
Oh yeah,
these translators?
that's like I'm not joking. That is a literal word for word Japanese English translation of this anime that's out this season.
and
Bogus
this,
skill fruit master. Yeah, like it's like what? It's a paragraph,
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
But that's the entire plot. That is the entire plot. Literally, like that's the entire premise of the anime in like one sentence.
Okay.
I've seen an anti isekai. It's called Uncle from Another World.
Oh yeah, Oji-san from like yeah, I remember that was so cool because it's a parody, right? And I
Yeah.
love stuff like that.
So it's like it's like anti isekai. So his uncle got into a coma, and this uncle was from another world, and he had powers in the other world. And in the other world, he was bullied, and he was ugly. And then finally, he woke up from his coma. And now he's in the real world. He's using his powers in the real
You
world.
know, that episode hit a little hard for me because this uncle was obviously trying to find work, like, and then he starts streaming
Mm.
games and go like, "Aren't we all streamers technically?" Like, in our 30s, we're all like going on content creation and streamers. And I'm like, I think this anime is trying to tell us something.
Yes, it's
Like
cutting a little too close to
the
reality.
irony, the irony was not lost on me. Honestly, when I watched, I think Amy, your recommendations are a really good one because the manga is still going on.
Oh.
It's not over. Like I remember reading it very briefly when I had the time because again, like there's so much going on. But Oji-san from Another World is actually like I think the anti-isekai, and it's like they've done it in such a nice way. I think like, that's again a twist on the whole isekai genre as a concept. I think that's a really
Yeah.
good recommendation
I
as well.
feel like I have to watch that one. It sounds, a bit different but funny.
It is,
Yeah.
yeah,
And now,
It is.
and
It
he's
is.
overpowered. He is overpowered, but I think he himself does not realize how overpowered he is, and it makes it even more funny as
yeah,
well.
because for me, it's quite hard to get into isekai now because even though the titles, are different, you can tell what the story is about. It all look the same to me. It has that vibe,
Yeah,
which is kind of hard to get away from. So it puts me off sometimes. That's why I avoid it. But imagine I used to watch a lot of isekai. So yeah. Now going back to our topic, I wanted to ask another question, which is how does isekai compare to other anime genres in terms of storytelling?
there isn't any story. It's the story is already done in episode 1. We just see how this one person dominates the world. That's it. Sorry guys, if it is need long none.
That's it.
Joking.
But
That's
it's
it.
exactly why you love it,
Rinse and
though.
repeat.
That
No, I
predictability,
mean,
or
no. So I think in terms of storytelling, because you develop this character over time, but there is a real problem when you develop the character to the point that there's no actual ambition. Again, it comes from character to character or anime to anime. But let's take a very good, like a good isekai, like Slime, for example. Reincarnated as a Slime is a good isekai because basically you have this character who is clearly an older person, and then he gets turned into a blank slate, and he himself is like not overpowered by nature, but he is making friends where he goes, and that by nature makes him overpowered because he is uplifting people around him, right?
Hmm.
And especially with Rimuru, because he's just a slime and everyone underestimates him. And I think we like to watch those things because we often get underestimated as people, and then we get to see this character. I think it's also like a more philosophical take and a more that psychological effect of people underestimating you, the ability of people to empower you, and that's a very good example of good character writing. But say, for example, let's go to the trash ones, right? I'm not naming names.
But I know
It's
which
Where
alright.
one you're naming.
yes, yeah, where the character animation, the character storytelling, the character decisions make absolutely no sense, but for the purpose of creating pure shock value. I think when we think of things like that, and then we see things like that, it puts us off isekais in general. And I think like
Mm.
many bad apples spoil the bunch.
Mhm.
And and I think that's why isekai gets a very bad rap in general.
Mhm.
Like, oh no, it's another isekai, it's another one of those so I turned into a spider, so what kind of situations.
Mm.
But if we look past all of the bad writing and stuff like that, there are some genuine, diamonds in the rough. It is definitely worth watching.
Mhm.
And I think definitely Slime gets like a big win for me
Mhm.
for this reason alone. And then we have the intelligent ones, like again, Yu Yu Hakusho. Yu Yu Hakusho was a traditional cheesy 90s anime, but it had such great storytelling.
Yeah.
And it has so many seasons, right? Like, even the way it ended on such a good way because it tied up the stories of all the characters. That it's the same thing with shonen, right? Like, you need to get invested in the character, otherwise you lost the interest.
Mm.
Mm.
Like, why do we love Luffy? Why do we love, like Naruto and all of these characters? Because the world is stacked against them, and
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 you've seen
again they
their
have
growth.
a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Correct. Much like in real life, when we look at it as people ourselves, like we obviously like look at our own life experiences. And I'm sorry, I'm coming back a bit more closer to real life on this, but it's true. We are shaped by the people around us and the media around us, and definitely how we improve as people. You suddenly think about it, and when you think about it, you were like, oh, I couldn't have been able to reach this path without this person.
Mhm.
Same thing with isekai. It's the same thing. And I think that's why a lot of people who love isekai just relate so hard to that.
I feel like we've talked a lot about like why you love isekai. Like, I mean, aside from it being like relatable as a Dubai kid, because like you're in a place where that
Hmm.
like you don't really belong, and all of that stuff. And I mean, like the lessons that it teaches and all of that. But what do you hate about isekai?
Hmm. Oh, where do I begin? Where do I even begin? Okay, so like I'll give an example of this anime, possibly the toilet anime, possibly the greatest alchemist of all time. Like, you have this character who has godlike powers. He has no idea what to do with them. It starts off in a very funny way as well. Like, obviously, he gets transported to another world. The god suddenly starts the first explanation. Oh, by the way, this other place summoned you, not me. But they were trying to summon multiple people to take over the world. And the first episode goes into so much crazy exposition where this character goes like, okay, just let me, give me back my body, please. I did not deserve this. Gets all of the powers, all of the blessings, suddenly is like building fortresses out of, like, in the first episode itself. I feel like when you don't have a conflict internally, right, you will need some time to write this character and flesh this out. But then, say for example, Arifureta,
Mhm.
which is also an isekai, and I think that's the one that has been like somewhat more successful, is the guy goes through hell and back in that one. The first episode, we see him literally go through the ringer, and he then becomes strong when you literally see him suffering, about to like see his body tear apart. But the only reason why he's living is because he has a spite to just kill everyone and get out of that world. Like, that's he's driven by spite. See, that's good writing. But then you go like, oh, the god goes like, oh, I'm sorry, you've been accidentally summoned, but I can't send you back because I don't have the control Z undo option on this one. I'm sorry. And then you go like, but you just brought him here. Like, why can't you just send
Send
him
it back.
back to his own world? Yeah, like as if nothing had happened. And I'm like, some of the stuff, like some of the writing doesn't make absolute sense. And then like it goes on to go like, oh, by the way, a year from now, I'm sending you a year early. There will be other people who are summoned with magic powers who come to kill you. Why? We don't know. Because you made a toilet and you angered the empire, and you're now drawn into this whole political landscape that you have nothing to do with.
Because of a toilet.
Because of a toilet. And that's what I'm saying. It's just such weird writing where you have this big battle setup, and then you have this amazing scene where the villain is like, yeah, I'm one of the most powerful world. He gets slapped into oblivion in the next 5 minutes when the story did not matter. And I'm like, then why did I watch the last 20 minutes of character development about this villain? Like, am I supposed to care about him if you're going to kill him in 5 minutes? No. And this is where I will come back to One Punch Man, because One Punch Man makes fun of this premise.
Yeah.
Where in the first season you have this villain who gives his entire thing, and then Saitama just goes like, okay, so
What?
you're done? Like, like, you're not important to me. You're going to be killed in the next one episode. You're done.
And there's even one
And
episode, I think, of One Punch Man where the villain
yeah,
was still saying his, line
yeah,
and
he's
stuff,
mid
and he's just
monologue.
bam.
Yeah, he's mid monologue, and he's killed instantly because Saitama needed to go somewhere. He needed to go shopping because the sale was about to run out. So you see, like priorities, and I think
Adulting priorities.
isekai is Yeah, exactly. Like I don't know, and I don't get how Japanese like I don't know how these I don't understand the economy of trash isekais. Like I don't. We have so many every season, and I don't know how they get greenlit to make them. And
Honestly,
somehow
yeah.
some of them, yeah, it makes no sense to me. And I'm like, what's the animation budget on them? Because you clearly can see there's no budget. Like you can clearly see there's no budget in some of them. But I guess, look, at the end of the day, my understanding is like animators need to like create a bunch of terrible isekais to like really come up in the anime
Mhm.
world. And I think um, we can have good story and great animation, or we can have a terrible story and good animation. It's like one of those things where you would never know until you try.
Mhm.
Mm.
And I think that's the logic behind it.
And there's one more thing that I wanted to point out. I just mentioned earlier that there's a lot of isekai coming out every season. There's a new title that's coming out, which is insane. And when I look at the posters, they all look the same. And another aspect of isekai that grinds me a bit is the harem part. I don't know what like.
I think Arifureta is guilty of this
Okay.
and many other isekais, but Arifureta literally they're not ashamed about this harem part. Literally, this season of Arifureta, right?
Mhm.
How many women does our protagonist already have? Let's count. He has the bunny rabbit. He
Mhm.
has the vampire girl who's almost like a child. He has his actual real life the girlfriend who died and came back, and then the girlfriend's best friend. So
So
far,
far.
among and let's not count because they were high school students when they got transported in the real world. The homeroom teacher also got transported, and she also falls in love with him. Not to count the princess of the land, who also falls in love with our character. I think that harem elements are just pure fan service. Like
Okay.
it gives. I know it grinds your gears as well. Like I think it's also appealing, and I hate to say this, but it's true. It appeals to the male fantasy.
Yeah.
It really
Seriously?
does. Like, oh yeah,
It really works?
it really does. It really does. Like let's like where has there been an isekai where a female protagonist has gone into another world and you had multiple men fawn over her? It's it's the villainous thing I told you about because it's a man in a woman's body and you have multiple men already like falling in love with this character. That's the only example I've seen so far, and that too, where you have a person. If it's a woman, and I think I've noticed
Fruits
this trend as
basket.
well.
Just trying to
Mm.
think of
L-
harem, reverse harem, I mean.
Yeah, like where have there been women where you have multiple men? Again, like when the protagonist has been a villainous character
Mm.
and they're stuck in an otome game, a dating game.
Okay.
Like that's the only time I've seen like women like, they're in a video game at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Where has there been a strong female character transported to another world and then they have multiple male characters fawning over her? Never, almost never. I've noticed this pattern as well. Like, if it is allowed for men, like for multiple women, to be okay with each other and then fall in love with this main character, why not for females as well? Like, why not have it as well? But then you begin to realize the majority of the population watching isekais, all males from 18 to 35, if not more.
Mm.
And I think in some way it appeals to them more because you have different characters. And again, it's almost sensitive because you have like a furry character, you have like a strong like a tsunade, like not like, like a
Like
dominant
type A
character.
Mm.
personality.
Di-
Yeah.
yeah, you see, like you have all of these characters, and then oh yeah, I get the pick of the pick of the lot. And I think it is massive fan service, but there are animes which make sense. And like you have like the medieval world where in real life kings were having
Yeah.
multiple
Mm-hmm.
partners and stuff.
True.
Mm.
And what this does in these settings is that you have developed storytelling and relationships between each of the protagonists and them. But yeah, to your point, is it needed? Probably not.
It's just for the fantasy part. Like,
Will it sell the merch? Yes, it will.
yeah, that's true. That's true. That's why there's waifu wars in certain animes. Like, who's your waifu?
I mean, there's a reason why pillows get sold out really fast of different characters. So I'm just saying, like it's pure
Yeah.
merchandising, and like if someone, we're all content creators here, and we all know that TV shows have toys and merchandising
Mm.
You
and
don't
like
have to look far.
figurines.
Just look at the name of our show.
Yeah, like when they develop it, the producer goes like, "Look, we need to make our money back. What can we do?
Mm.
Best girl." And then we have second best girl, and then we have third best
Yeah.
girl, and then make statues, and that's how we make your money. And it's all come back to capitalism, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, that's true. Amy?
No, I'm no, I'm literally just thinking about it. I'm like, but
think
don't
about it.
no
Like
no no, because in my head I'm like, But don't men technically also have the element of choice, especially when they get older? But then I'm thinking, like in Japan, a
Do
lot of
they?
them. I feel like
Do they?
I feel like look, this is gonna it's away from the topic, but I feel like girls once they reach 30, and when guys once they reach 30, the opposite happens, right?
I think before, but not
Like
anymore.
I don't
We
know.
live in very different worlds, I think.
I feel like guys start reaching their prime at 30, 30 plus, and then like women just fawn over them. And that's usually because, at that point,
I don't
men
know
are
if Vims
usually
is
more
judging you or
stable
at
or
this point.
Girl, she's
and
talking about reaching 30s. Girl, your metabolism slows down in 30s. What do you mean it's your prime?
no, for men, not women.
But
I
still,
said
it's
that's
the
the opposite
same.
for women.
It's the same.
So by Amy's logic, we age like fine wine, while women age like milk. I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
I don't agree. What about you, Kevin? This is an off-topic discussion, but yeah.
Um,
It's a very
look,
off topic
it's
discussion.
very off topic. No, I do think that women. Okay, like look, I think women become way more conscious of their choices in their 30s.
Mm,
Like you've had the 20s to like figure out what you like, and in your 30s, you don't get what you like.
yeah, you
Mm.
So,
have to.
and which is why, like, yeah, obviously, I think, and this applies to men as well. We become so fiercely independent that we refuse to change, because in our 20s, we're like, oh yeah, we're open to like figuring out new stuff and new things, and then in your 30s you're like, I don't have the time, I don't have the mental energy, i I'm
I'm
too
tired.
I am tired. And I think this is a very millennial thing as well. Like it's a very millennial thing
Yeah, it is.
where we go like, do I need to go out today and spend 2 hours in traffic? No, I don't. I can just sit at home and watch anime and be happy as a clam. I'm okay with that. I have saved money and I'm also watching anime. I'm doing the bare minimum in life. I think I'm okay. You know?
I I
And
think I do agree with that
yeah,
because I do know few
Mm.
people who are like that. At least for guys, who has
yeah.
that kind of mentality that it's a hassle, it's too much work, and same thing for the ladies that it's
I
like
mean,
that.
it also comes back to the whole why isekai is so popular with a certain subsection of people, because like as introverts you don't really get out a lot, in the sense that you don't want to get out a lot, and that's by choice. And
Mm.
I respect that, because when you make these fantasies, it's like you're speaking to like, oh, what if, like. And I think the whole point of doing this what if scenario is why we come back always to the same thing about harem elements. It's also kind of sad because like in Japan, at the end of the day, we have the situation where you are seeing male Japanese people literally marry AI or robots, and then
Yeah.
it's such a weird thing, because they are always constantly working,
Hmm.
and then their social battery is almost at the minimum, and then they just want to like relax. And do they want to interact with more people?
No.
No, they rather watch crazy, harem story.
Mhm.
And I think, yeah, it speaks more about our culture generally, not my culture specifically, but Japanese culture, to that effect. Yes, it may not make sense from a story perspective, but it makes sense from a cultural perspective, which is why we keep seeing it every time now, time and time again, where you have multiple strong different female characters and then one male protagonist.
Mm.
And I think it's the same with idol culture as well, because again, I don't get idol culture, but it's a thing, right?
Yes, yes, it is a thing. I used to watch
Yeah.
Love Live, and see, okay, there was a time that I watched Love Live only because I was asked to review it. I used to be a writer for an anime magazine in Singapore, and it's like my initial article that they want me to submit, and they want me to watch Love Live, and I was like, what the hell is this? Like, they're just schoolgirls who wants to be an idol, and I'm like, I don't get the appeal. Like, okay, I'll give it first 3 episodes, and okay, let's see. But then I still had to finish it because it's for an article, right? And I was feeling the Yuri vibes kind of thing in the anime, but at the end of it, my playlist is filled with their songs. So I don't know. It got me. So yeah, I get what you mean with
Yeah.
idol shows. Yeah.
And they have really good songs, I
True.
have to admit.
That's what got me. The songs, the costumes.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so moving on. So we've talked about a lot about isekai, and we wanted to ask you what are some overrated titles and what are some of the underrated gems that you can think of.
There was another anime I, I really, really appreciated. Again, it's stupid as hell, where this one character, same thing, it's very similar for the middle-aged man who has Amazon. This one series literally, I think it's like a hidden gem kind of a thing. And here's the title. It's called Campfire Cooking in Another World with My Absurd Skill Boosts Gamer Stats with Food.
So his main thing is being able to camp.
Yes, that's his ability. His ability is he has access to a Japanese storefront, and he can bring Japanese snacks and food, and the thing is he feeds. So he encounters one of the most powerful beings who is known for being ruthless and murderous, and he feeds him actual food from the store, and then this guy goes like, I will form a pact with you, and I will be your guardian if you feed me every day. And then the more he eats this creature, the more he eats this guy's food, he becomes insanely powerful. And that doesn't apply just to him. Everyone in that world who eats this guy's food, this summoned person's food, is instantly boosted.
Instant
And
buff.
the reason, yeah, he's like the buff character. He buffs everyone else except himself. It doesn't work on him. It works for everybody else, but it doesn't work for him. And he's useless in combat. And then, but he has a slime character that does not speak but loves the food. And then we see this situation where the slime character also becomes a trash bin because he cleans up the mess, and he also gets boosted from the mess.
Okay.
But okay, the reason why, I know it sounds absurd, but if you watch it, you will get hungry. I'm not even joking.
I mean, Japanese food in anime always looks so good. So.
Yeah, like right now, I think because Monster Hunter has come out.
Oh
right? And
yes.
Monster Hunter Wilds has this scene where they're baking bread with cheese. Right now, Japanese people are running to the market to make it again because they're running out of cheese because it looks
So
it looks so good. But the food in this one looks fantastic, and I genuinely started ordering food. Like I got so hungry, and like I said, and then I began to realize that this genre of food in isekais is its own thing.
Mm.
And
So
I
you would
think,
make a pact with this man too.
yeah, 100%. If I get Japanese food that buffs me, sure.
sure. Any time of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like this is one of the best tropes I've seen, like where it involves an actual, because in the show we see this character actually explaining these are real dishes, and he explains how he cooks
Oh.
them and the ingredients he uses, so you can actually take it from the show and make your
Let me
your
write
own.
it down. What is the title?
Campfire Cooking in Another World.
Campfire cooking in
That's
another.
the short
Okay.
version of it.
Okay. You know what? We will get the list of all the titles you've mentioned in this episode anyway to take note
Yeah,
of it.
yeah.
But
So
speaking of
that's the yeah, the best
yeah,
one. The worst one,
mm.
and oh my gosh, the worst one.
Sword Art Online.
I listen. I don't want. I don't know if someone else has given the show hate. But honestly, the stupidity of MCs in anime, like you're overpowered as hell. Why are you so dumb as rocks? Like,
They're only
like
overpowered. They didn't take, intelligence with them or whatever.
yeah, like intelligence. Like you think like, okay, there was this one anime, like this one isekai, not even isekai. It's basically this character is like a demon,
Okay.
Okay.
and he's raised as a scientific project, and his only power, right, is if he thinks that this person should die, they die. That's it. It's one of the stupidest animes I watched, and I cannot believe I watched the entire thing because I wanted to see where the story went. Because I'm like, oh my god, like this is terrible. I want to see
What will
where it
happen?
is
Yeah.
and what will happen. And like we see this guy playing video games in the bus, minding his own business, and then they get transported to another world, and all the high school students suddenly get different powers and different tiers of powers. So all the powerful guys go like, okay, we got the most powerful powers, we don't need to care about you, and everyone becomes like going against each other. And then they try to kill the guy who's minding his own business, and then he goes like Shine, and
He died.
dead. The character who had so much development in the first episode just drops on the ground, and that's his thing. That's his entire power. Like we see all of these anime characters fighting each other, and he just goes and says the word, "You're dead." I'm like, okay, cool. Clearly, there should be some weakness where he maybe if someone wants to kill him from far away, he can't see the protagonist. Maybe he can't kill them then. No, turns out someone tries to shoot them from far away with a bow and arrow, and then he goes like, he looks at the arrow, he starts holding the arrow, and then his mind goes to like, you could see the camera panning out to the person who shot them, and he goes like, whoever shot this arrow should die, and then the character dies. It's so stupid.
You don't
And
even
I'm
know
like,
who shot the arrow. Like the
yeah, you don't even know who shot it, and then the character who has had literally no bearing on the story, just drops dead. We don't know anything about this character. We don't know any motivations, nothing. And then we move on to the next episode. These are tropes that I do not like. I love the overpoweredness of things, but every character should have some sort of conflict, right? And that's the whole core part of storytelling. But the most boring isekais are the ones that they have insane powers and there's no weakness about them whatsoever. Their only weakness is that they're only socially inept. And like you're telling me like that's a good story? No, it's not. Like you just basically gave an introverted person a power to detonate a nuke. That's exactly what you did.
Yeah.
And I think those are some of the most hated tropes because you can tell some, again, I don't know if it's like a Japanese thing where people find it endearing to find like a stupid person getting, powerful.
I don't
But
know. A lot of powerful people are pretty stupid these days.
that is true. That is also true.
Okay.
That is very true. I like how Amy's like dropping truth bombs today.
Just here and
Just out
there,
of the bag.
like
Just like little truth bombs and going like, that actually does make sense. And that actually tracks. And, damn, that actually just changed my world opinion, worldview on this anime. Oh, wow, he's really stumped me on that one. Okay.
I mean, you
But
did
yeah,
take a
like,
look at the landscape and like, okay.
there you go. Yeah, no. Yeah, so I think that is like the trope I hate the most because I expect if you've been reincarnated into another world, you'll have some basic intelligence to understand how the world works. But the bottom line being, like, I think that's like the most hated thing I do not appreciate about like isekais in general. I think that's why isekais in general get a lot of hate as well.
Yeah, that's fair. But if
Yeah.
you had to recommend an isekai, like for someone who really doesn't like isekai or like hasn't watched isekai, what would be your recommendation?
I think definitely look to. I mean, like the stepping stone to isekai is like the ones I mentioned, like Yu Yu Hakusho, Yasha, are great.
I will stop you
Because
there.
yeah,
They're great, but do you think someone who is, let's say, starting, let's say for example now in this day and age, I
yeah,
don't think they will
yeah,
appreciate the storytelling of Inuyasha because it's very episodic, and then
yeah.
Yu
I
Yu
mean,
Hakusho
but
as
that's
well. I don't know. It's just
yeah because these are like legacy, like they're like classic
yeah,
TV
that's why.
animes, and they're made for TV and stuff like that. And I think if we are looking at a modern take on this, I think that time I reincarnated as a slime is like up there. Like I
Okay.
think that's one of the best because we have enough material for like multiple seasons plus a movie, and I think that one is like a pure power fantasy anime that fits in all of the tropes as well. Because I think compared to the other characters, like Rimuru is a likable character, and you want to see like Rimuru also navigates the whole, oh yeah, what happens in your whole life when you're gone, and the first thing we see is like we tell his Kyodai that please throw my PC in the bathtub so that the internet history is wiped, and we see that scene, and I think that was incredibly hilarious because that's like when you do end up kicking the bucket, I'm like, do I want people to see my internet search history? Probably not. Probably not. And I think that's like a very good trope that they showed, like, okay, he got stabbed and everything, and basically that. And I think it's the most relatable one because even in slime we get to see him bringing aspects of his culture, and he's not the only one who's summoned. There are multiple people, and I think the fact that they navigate as Japanese people in this other world to figure out life and stuff like that. And even though there's like this assumed harem elements and the characters are very adultly drawn and things, I don't need to mention
Answer
that further,
Missy
but we don't see
Way.
Rimuru actually like doing all of these things like as a character. We don't actually get to see that. We don't There's not much of emphasis based on the storytelling. It's such a feel good anime where we know that there's a bigger, larger story in the world, but it focuses on his friendships and his, how do I get powerful without being the bad guy? And I think that's why it's one of my top recommendations.
I feel bad that I stopped you with Inuyasha and Yu Yu Hakusho because even for me, I really
Yeah,
want people to watch it. Like it's really good titles.
yeah.
It's just that like a beginner
It's a
wouldn't.
it's a slow burn. It's
Yeah.
a slow burn. It really is. And I think in this age of TikTok, you know, people
Brain
don't
rot.
have the patience. Oh my god. Uh, yeah, I don't think people have the patience to watch old animes. Like I started watching Gintama now. Like I've never watched Gintama, and Gintama is known as
A
one of
comedy.
the most
Yeah.
popular. Yeah, and the reason I found out about Gintama is because in Psyche
Ah.
K, which
Yeah.
is a slice of life, we see Gintama
Yeah.
appear in there because it's like, I think similar creators, and the reason why Gintama is so good is because it broke the fourth wall all the time, and it included little tidbits of Japanese culture and history. And I love the setting about a feudal Japan being invaded by aliens, and then samurais are banned. And I think the premise alone, because it becomes a comedy anime in general, but it's an actual serious anime. It's an actual
Yeah.
really well thought out story and stuff like that. But it's also a slow burn because I couldn't get it into the first episode, and I realized Netflix and all of these, like Crunchyroll, while it's all been great, we are saturated with how many animes this season? We have like 40, 50, not to count the seasons of the next seasons of the next anime that were then, like,
Yeah.
right now the other anime that I'm watching, which you can consider as isekai, but it's not really, is Shangri-La Frontiers, which is a video game anime where, like Sword Art Online, they get into this other world. But the difference is over here, and it's most relatable to video gamers, is that the MC is a massive sweat. he plays Dark Souls games. He plays trash games with stupid mechanics, and he keeps talking about how these games are so stupid,
But he still
and he
plays it.
wants to
Yeah.
beat them, and he still plays it because that's what gives him the high. And then he plays this actual good game called Shangri-La Frontiers, and then we see that the girl who's crushing on him in high school is actually one of the most OP players in this game, because she bought that game to get into like gaming for him, and then she realizes, oh, he's in this game now. I need to help him, but he doesn't know that the person he's playing with is the girl who's crushing on him at any time, and he plays it like a Dark Souls game, and we see this character literally skip the tutorial mission and jump into the boss fight and go like, oh, I don't know what, and he skips the entire story, like, and it's like what I'm saying, like, he makes the joke about we don't have time to see the stuff, and Netflix is now figuring out ways to, like, oh, the characters have to be written in a way that, if you're on your phone and you're watching something, the characters can tell you what they're doing and how they're doing it, even in the show, which is stupid. It's really stupid, but that's what the Gen Alphas and the Gen Zs are watching right now. And if they have to watch a long burn show, why do you think movies are bombing right now? Why do you think things are not, like, because their brains are so tuned to watching something in 10 seconds or less? They'd rather doom scroll for 1 hour than watch quality TV for the same amount of time. And it's a scary thought, because, like, that's the direction we're heading in, where companies are like, oh, how do we get maximum viewership, how do we get maximum profitability, let's make more trash content. And I don't think the days of trash isekai are over. I think we're still going to get every season at least 10, 15 of them. But yeah, I mean, to my point about the best anime to watch right now are the ones that you like the most, and I don't think people should judge you for it. Like, if you like the anime you're watching, that's good enough for you.
Yeah. We're going to move on to the last segment of this episode, where we're going to ask you rapid fire questions. Is this a real isekai anime, or did we just make it up?
Gosh. Okay,
Okay.
let's do this.
So we will be telling you anime titles,
Alternative.
and you will tell us
Yeah.
if this is real or we just made it up.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's start with the first one. In another world with my smartphone.
I think it is real.
Ta-da! Correct. It's real.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the next one is: do you love your mom and her 2-hit multi-target attacks?
Okay, come on. Okay, that's ridiculous. I don't know if it's real. I don't think it's real.
It's real.
Is it real?
Real.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay, next is: reincarnated as a salaryman, but my office is in a fantasy world.
No.
Yeah, it's fake.
No.
It's quite obvious.
Yeah, because like I just talked about reincarnated as a salaryman.
I mean, how many animes can there be with salaryman? You'll never know. Kevin.
It was a hit, so it might.
It did stop me a second, so I think it could be real.
Okay, so another one is reborn as the dungeon master's pet. Now I must conquer the labyrinth.
Yeah, I think it's real.
It's fake.
No? No, but there is so yeah, there is an anime actually that came out this season about he becomes a dungeon master's pet. So that's why I got confused.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
I think it's a different
Fine.
name.
That's why
Yeah.
it's confusing. Okay.
Yeah.
So one last is that time I got transported to a fantasy world, but I'm just the guy who sells potions.
No. No.
You're right.
Really?
Slay.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. No.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it for the quiz segment. What do you think?
Perfectly balanced. I think two wrong, two right. I think we're
Yeah.
good. I think we're good on this.
We finally gave you a quiz.
And thankfully not in front of the public. So yeah. I think if I answered all of them correctly, I'm like, man, this man really loves his isekai. Huh?
Like, oh no, that's wrong. That's wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much, Kevin, for being with us today and for
Thank you for having me.
for sharing with us your love for isekai. Is there anything you want to promote?
Yeah, actually, this is not an isekai one, but I think it's a breakthrough anime that I think is definitely going to blow up. Sakamoto Days. Uh,
Yeah.
Yes,
Sakamoto
yes,
Days is right
yes.
now on my watch list. I think it's coming out literally tonight, and definitely don't miss it. I mean, read the mangas. The manga is like something else, and it's so well
Mhm.
drawn. It's also like I think one of my favorite, like one of the things I'm starting to get into now is actual real life Japanese culture. If there's any anime that shows me that, I'm getting more and more invested in that. And like I like the whole point of Sakamoto Days showing like the fairs, the snacks, and all of the stuff.
Saving the
And I think the
bonds.
premise of yeah, and the premise of what if John Wick got married and started a grocery store and got fat is very appealing. And I think it's definitely a good story. I love where the anime is going, and I think it's really well. Even the fight scenes are really good. So definitely that's my recommendation.
Yeah. Okay. How about where can people follow you?
Nox Voyager on the internet, so that's Nox Voyager. I have opinions on a lot of things, some of them good, some of them not so great. And but at the end of the day, if you want your daily dose of pop culture, tech, gaming, things, and also like stuff you really already want to buy, and if you're in Dubai and you're generally hungry and you want to get a good deal on food, you can find me there on the internet.
Thank you so much, Amy.
You can follow me at just anything on Instagram.
So yeah, and for me guys, follow me at Viv's Black Mage. Also, we do have a Discord channel and also a subreddit for UAE anime fans, which you can find in the description below. And last but not the least, we have an ongoing partnership with Otaku ME, where you can buy items for 10% off by using our code OME Ara Ara.
Thank you again so much, Kevin, for being here today. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. I mean, it's nice to come on the podcast after watching it for many
Aw,
seasons.
Thank you so much.
It's nice to be on here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, bye.
Bye.
Ara, ara.